because I've always had a profound and deep love of nature. I always have felt very comfortable in forest and just being in nature, from planting flowers with my mother as a child to running naked around bonfires in a forest later on in life. I've truly loved nature, and I wanted to understand what are these forces that animate our world, because obviously this world is telling us something. There is information coming to us.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu Taoist Master San Qing, and I have an incredible offering from the universe, a really profound being, and I'm very grateful and have been looking forward to this very moment of sharing some space and time with Laurence Galian, a very well-renowned author and explorer of all things spiritual, being trained and mastered in many different facets of the spiritual journey in all walks of life. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you very much, son. I really appreciate you inviting me, and I think it's going to be a real interesting conversation, because it's not often that I have the opportunity to be interviewed by someone of such a background as yourself. So I think we really can delve into some very interesting topics and dive deep also. So I'm looking forward to today's talk.
Oh, and I have been for quite some time, ever since you agreed to come on the podcast. So I'm very grateful you're here today, my friend. What I would like you to share a little bit with the audience is a little bit about how we got to this present moment, how you entered into your journey, how you entered into your journey and how we got here. So just a little bit more background, because there's just so many facets to your diamond that represents who you are. And I think that this really is a testament to what exploration is in diving deep into a mastery and an understanding of so many different ways to go up the mountain in relation to a spiritual journey and an enlightened journey, an awareness, a realization of this present moment. And so, oh my goodness, I'm sure you probably got many stories, but a little bit to sort of give people a little background of who you are.
Well, I would say that we are born into like our role that we're going to play, or our job here on this planet. You might want to look at it through the lens of reincarnation, something like that. Yeah, I sure could give you like lots of stories. As a very, very young child, maybe 3 years old, I was just fascinated by church, and not I I was adopted, and I was adopted into a Catholic family, and I wasn't into the Mass very much at all. But when they would take me during the week when there was no one in the church, I would love it. I'd run up the aisle with my little legs and go to the altar and just talk with God, quote unquote. And I don't know what I said, but we had our conversations. And then later I studied in pre-seminary and studied to become a Passionist monk, but gradually realized that I like the ladies too much to become celibate for the rest of my life, and I had to turn them down. And so, one strange thing about me is that I never was a person that thought that I had to exclude um, like one tradition if I was involved with another tradition. For example, while I was very much a Christian, a Catholic, studying for the Passionist monastery, I also discovered a book by a man named Rudolf Steiner, who invented anthroposophy. Before that, he was a theosophist. And I took to this book like a duck to water. And then I just read all of his books. And then I had the good pleasure of discovering that only 90 minutes away from my home, there was a Steiner community, which I went to visit, and I became friends with the teachers, the masters there, and they opened many doors for me. And that kind of was my introduction to the occult, the esoteric, whatever you're comfortable calling it, the other world, the paranormal. And then after that, I explored a little bit ceremonial magic through the books of a man named Ophiel. And like I said, I never felt like being a Christian was a contradiction to studying the occult sciences. I always wanted to find the truth, and boy, I wouldn't let anything get in my way of finding out what it's all about. And but I didn't do it in I don't know what to say, in an arrogant way. It was in a truly sincere way. I wanted to know what's at the basis of all this reality, what's at the basis of all this God stuff, who really is God, who really is Jesus. At first, those were my questions. And so then I got into Sufism, very deeply into Sufism, and later Gnosticism, witchcraft. I am an initiated witch of the New York Welsh tradition, and I'm very proud of that. And lately I've been exploring that again. Yeah, I think that's enough as an introduction.
I think that's my goodness, there are so many doors to go through right there. Um, why don't we start with something that you had just mentioned? You're really proud of your witch initiation and your embodying of that very practices, belief system. However, how would you define that? Would that be something that you would consider a belief system, a faith, a some type of inner knowing? Because I mean, magic has so much to do with real magic, in my opinion. We're not talking about David Blaine magic. We're talking about truly altering the rippling effects of shifts of consciousness in this realm and many others through these initiations and practices that can come from, you know, material things and merge into a high resonance that goes beyond this very space that we're in. So where would you say that sort of sits on your timeline of who you are and how that sort of fit into your journey throughout your lifetime? What does that mean to you?
I think that's a good question. I First I would remove the word magic, because that is not what first attracted me
Mm-hmm.
to witchcraft, or some call it Wicca. Uh, I would use the word experience.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to more deeply travel into the natural world, and because I've always had a profound and deep love of nature, I always have felt very comfortable in forest, and just being in nature, from planting flowers with my mother as a child to running naked around bonfires in a forest later on in life. I truly loved nature, and I wanted to understand what are what are these forces that animate our world, because obviously this world is telling us something. There is information coming to us. The witches would say earth, air, fire, and water, and the fifth element being spirit. That would be a simplistic way of looking at it. But if you think about it, it is also has its profundity, to look at the world in terms of earth, air, fire, and water, uh, because the witches actually some believe that there might be actual beings of water, beings of fire, and so forth. And so I wanted to make contact with these beings. That's what was important to me. I thought some kind of unification. If you think about the idea of the world being created by a creator, when of course when I was younger, I very much believed in this creator idea. But as life went on, and I studied more and more about, the Bible, the Old Testament, and so forth, I realized that, just speaking for myself, that good old Yahweh was a monster. He was just some small Middle Eastern God who asked for horrible things, and just like with so many gods, they attributed the creation of the universe to him. But, I did not want to subscribe after several decades of my life, to believe in some God that's going to ask you to kill your own child, that will wipe every human from the face of the earth. When you think about it, like the Great Flood, and people, draw these pictures of Noah's Ark and all that stuff. But in reality, if you really believe that, then you have to believe that this Yahweh guy he wasn't just killing men, he was killing women, he was killing pregnant women, he was killing children, he was killing babies and infants. So they didn't even really have the opportunity to to be, these bad, evil people that supposedly he hated that were populating the earth. So I said, well, there's got to be another explanation. So I went more deeply into a kind of Japanese Chinese Zen that's been known as Mushin and Wushin, because I don't know why. One day I've always worked in universities, and I love working in universities because they have great libraries. One day I was on my break, I was walking through the stacks of books, and I saw this little yellow book. And who could resist picking up a little yellow book and seeing what's inside it? And it was a bunch of Chan stories. And it taught a little bit about quieting the mind. And that fired my, I don't know, something inside me. And yes, maybe from a past life. And so I started experimenting with just, saying, shut up to that monkey mind that's constantly chattering. And I found results. At first, people didn't believe me when I said, like, I can quiet my mind. But I did have a knack for it. And so I've continued all my life working on quieting my mind. And so then when you go out into nature and then you quiet your mind and then you start to experience what's really in front of you, you're not using your mental vocabulary. You're not saying, that's a tree, that's a bush, that's a flower, that's grass. No, you're just experiencing what you're experiencing in its real essence. And that's a trip. And so that is what I think really pulled me into witchcraft and Wicca, is that sense of experiencing directly this earth. And of course, yes, I received what might you call it, awareness, and yes, awareness of what I was experiencing, a deep awareness, not just a superficial awareness. I mean, oh boy, do we live in a superficial world. And the Gnostics talked about that a lot. I mean, we are drawn in from every direction to engage the world really in an artificial way. I mean, like, I can't think of a better example of an artificial world than Las Vegas, or some kind of place like that. Or I know I'm stepping on a sacred cow here, but Disney World and Disneyland.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually a little bit outside of Las Vegas, but yeah, I absolutely agree with you. There's this sort of like I would be actually really curious. You bring up a subject. So when we're talking about artificial, what do you think is the point that was most self-evident, the moving towards this transhumanistic sort of like viewpoint of reality?
I do believe that that there are various forces in this universe, that we most definitely live in a universe with a universe of consciousness, but that consciousness can be corrupted, that consciousness can be twisted and tricked and made to seem like what it is not. I mean, when you think about people putting so much faith in a spin of the roulette wheel or playing blackjack, or just the sexualization of women dancing topless, and all the fake and phony costumes and artificial music that's being played. We are being taken further and further away from reality. And so anything that is any addiction that you might think of, be it just an addiction to credit cards. I mean, you and I both know how many people in the United States alone are just way, way into debt beyond imagination. And they're paying one card with another card. And they're waking up into a deep sweat at night because they're so frightened of what they've done. They've bought with their cars, overspent, keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the neighbor's car, or buying a car every 2 or 3 years. Why? And then there's Hollywood, which is very mysterious, because Hollywood offers both sides of the story. Sometimes it offers truth, and sometimes it offers lies. And so you got to be very careful with Hollywood. It can really open up your mind, but it also can shut down your mind. So yeah, one has to be careful with Hollywood. Yeah, but all sports, the obsession with sports, and there I have to be honest, I love American football, and but yes, this obsession with sports betting, creating sports teams, and so on and so forth. And people actually, I've had the good fortune of being able to travel a great deal. And when I was in England, I got to see firsthand the violence that people engaged in over just like two neighborhoods playing soccer, just a soccer game. This was like a life and death matter. So yeah, we're deep in the shit of living in an artificial world, and we need to get back to the garden, as that song said, back to reality. And most people don't want to face reality. I mean, now with everybody has their smartphone, the internet. I mean, you can be a specialist in anything in 2 to 4 weeks. You can get your certificate as a life coach, as a yoga specialist, or what have you. Yeah, with the internet, people will they'll watch a few videos, and then they'll hang up a shingle, and say, oh, I'm a tarot card reader, or I'm a witch, or I'm a ceremonial magician, or what have you. Um, and yeah, I heard something this morning that really clicked with me. Someone said that the two greatest problems with humankind are fear and laziness. And boy, I mean, the internet sure has made us very, very lazy. And I'm not saying that there's not benefits to it, but we have to be damn careful. And now we're facing people that want to completely replace our physical bodies with artificial bodies. And to me, that is a horror, because hidden in our DNA are secret codes. I mean, what does every artist do? I'm a musician. What do I do when I finish writing a piece, composing a composition? I sign it. And they have found in DNA a type of signature. Now, I'm no expert at this. I'm not a scientist. I'm a musician. I'm an author. But I think it is terribly dangerous. These people that not only want to hook us up to computers, but actually who want to replace the whole package with an artificial body. And I don't think these people, they talk about their scientific knowledge about, for instance, the brain, but they don't talk about their knowledge about consciousness. These people do not study consciousness. They're fanatics about brain science. And yeah, I'm all for studying the brain and exploring the brain. But to replace our human bodies with artificial ones, and even before we know how we got these bodies. I mean, where did these bodies come from? Where did we come from? The big questions. And they're already ready to say, just throw out the body and the heck with all this nature stuff. And, let's just replace it with the artificial. And I think that is absolute insanity. If you want to know the truth, it's insane, because until we know truly what is consciousness, how does our brain interact with consciousness, or the field, or whatever you want to call it, how does our brain interact with consciousness? What is this flesh and blood? A good hint comes from Wicca, earth, air, fire, and water. But yes, what is the source of, what is the source? To know the source, the foundation or the ground of existence. What is he called? Brahman. Yes, the one who is nameless, the one who is beyond really knowing, in a sense. But the Brahman, the ground of all existence, that's what I want to communicate with. That's what I want to know. And yeah, I lost a good friend to gambling, and I've lost some friends to alcoholism. It's very sad. Uh, Drug addicts. All of this is just ways to keep us away from the true reality. Now, I have nothing against entheogens, natural plant allies, but these artificial party drugs, no, that's just to entertain us, keep us from thinking about the real questions, right? That you ask on your program all the time. And you have some fantastic guests that do address these issues. And that I really enjoy that, because rarely do I have an opportunity to be interviewed by someone who knows his stuff. Often people want to have a podcast or something on YouTube or something like that, but they really don't know their stuff. They don't know the vocabulary. They don't know, they've never really been there. They've never had a transcendental experience. They've never really had an experience that goes beyond anything one can imagine. And I think unless you've had an experience like that, you really have no business doing a podcast with people who have had such experiences, or who can help to convey to people who want to have those experiences how to do so. I'm all for teaching, and I do teach, and I teach for free. I had a podcast, The Place Inside, on YouTube for over 10 years, and I never monetized it. I never saw the point. And Rudolf Steiner did say that the true initiate never charges for his or her wisdom. So I can understand charging for your time. I mean, we all have to feed ourselves and have a roof over our head, but to charge for the wisdom itself, uncool in my book. So talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, you've covered so many things, my friend. It's really beautiful. We talk about identifying, and you moved over that the the very essence of how this intelligence is sort of giving life to physical form, and across all platforms, there's still not a deep understanding, apart from when you go into the ancient scriptures of whatever belief system we're operating in. Do we have a true understanding of, from conception to actual realization of this heartbeat that takes place with the growth of life? And so from all platforms, we speak of the entry of the soul into this physical form that then presents the life force that is representative in the growth and birth of a living being, a child. What are your thoughts on that from a perspective of the deep diving that you've had within the Wicker processes? Do you go over that in great detail? I mean, we could go over Rosicrucian stuff, but I want to start there because I feel like that's something that's very, very much a part of who you are, and you have a great. I can see the energy that comes from it when the joy that comes out of you when you speak of that. So, What is that? Is there any sort of defining moment that they share with you in relation to that? Or is that something that would come from another belief system?
Well, one of the beautiful things about Wicca or witchcraft is that we have no Bible, we have no Pope, and people are basically free to explore in their own way. Yes, it's and I had the good fortune of studying with a high priestess who also had studied Kabbalah with a rabbi from Chernobyl. And she taught just a few of us a private class in Kabbalah. And wow, did that open my eyes? I think for those who don't know, we should make clear here that that almost all the religions of the world, especially the revealed religions, if you want to call it that, have an outer form, which you call the exoteric form, and then the inner form, the esoteric form. And often, like with Kabbalah, you had to be at least 40 years old before you could even be taught about Kabbalah. And I like that because you have life experience, and there is nothing to replace life experience, going through tremendous suffering, tremendous joy. All of that is so very important to understanding the spirit world, to progressing on the spiritual path. But one thing that really caught and fired my imagination was when she, our teacher, pointed out that here in this Sephiroth, this is where the God the Father is located. And I could see that on the tree of life, there still were many more levels to go. And I thought, wow, yes, here's some secret information that this God the Father creator guy, he's not what's on top of the tree of life. Actually, he's a great distance from it. And so, yeah, and well, you know a great deal about Rosicrucianism, and of course Rudolf Steiner. He was very much into Rosicrucianism, Gnosticism. He also formed his own teaching called anthroposophy, which kind of evolved from theosophy. And also, I'm not ashamed to admit that I am a follower of Aleister Crowley. Now, I know he's been called the wickedest man who ever lived, and all sorts of horrible names, the great beast. But I do believe that, well, one, that he had a great sense of humor, and he enjoyed all this publicity. He knew a lot of the secrets of publicity and psychology long before this was common knowledge. A good way to sell cigarettes to people, having doctors selling cigarettes on commercials to people. But Aleister Crowley people need a scapegoat. They always, for some crazy reason, well, I don't think it's a crazy reason. It's because we all have a shadow. We all walk around with this personality that we put out there, the persona, if you will. And even right now, I am projecting a persona. I'm not just letting it all out at this very second, because we all have these desires, and it's not just negative stuff in the shadow. For instance, I was driving down the street one day with my girlfriend, and her father was driving, and his girlfriend was in the passenger seat. And he was a big businessman, very successful, very wealthy. And along on the sidewalk, we passed this hippie, long hair, typical hippie. And this man said, look at that disgusting, dirty hippie. And I thought to myself, there you go. There's his shadow. He does not want to be the businessman. He does not want to be in this business suit. He wants to be in jeans, a t-shirt, smoking marijuana, playing his djembe and dancing around the bonfire, or whatever hippies do. And that's his desire. And then there's others of us that have always wanted to be, I don't know, musicians, but our parents told us, no, you must be a lawyer, or you must be an accountant. And deep inside, these were people, and I can talk about my friend now because he's passed on, the gambling addict. He was a terrific guitarist. We had a little band together, and he could play so beautifully, and he could sing just like Cat Stevens. And yeah, I knew that's what his great love was. But his family, he came from a big family, all boys, and the pressure in that family to be financially successful was so strong that this led him to really gamble, truly in the sense of the word of gamble, his income, and to do other things that weren't so cool, instead of saying, damn it, I love music, I am going to study music, I'm going to play music, and screw you all. But the family pressure was so great that he had this giant shadow that he was carrying around behind himself. Now, so as far as when does the soul enter a fetus, and what's that all about? I would say you have to go back to the whole concept of the field, that we live in a field of consciousness, if you want to call it that. And so this happens organically. And so I don't think there is any need to say, oh, well, it happens at 2 months or 3 months into the pregnancy. I am adopted, and I had the good fortune of actually looking for for over 16 years and finding my biological parents. Now, you want to hear something amazing. The year that I met my biological mother was 1994. I published my first book, Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence. Well, actually, New Falcon Publications published it. And little did I know that my biological father was an author. I had no idea about this. And he just passed away this past December, but he wrote many, many books. And then here I am, a musician. I started taking piano lessons at 6 years of age, and I took to it like a duck to water. I mean, I never looked back. I never asked myself, do I like doing this? Do I want to continue doing this? I never had that thought in my mind. It was just, I play piano. This is what I do. And I'm a musician. Well, I didn't know this back in '94 when I met my biological mother. And also the same year, my adopted mother passed away. But I did not know this, but my biological mother was a singer, a musician, very much interested in the esoteric, the occult, the paranormal. She loved the Seth books. If any of your listeners and viewers are familiar with the Seth material. So how can we possibly avoid our DNA and not include that in this whole discussion of, you put it as something like, when does the soul enter the physical form? It's sort of an organic process that takes place over a while, but here were two unmarried people. One man, I said, my father, but before he was an author, he was a musical director, a theatrical director, he directed musicals. And before I even met him, I became a musical director, and I was conducting musicals all around, up and down the Eastern Seaboard. And so did he. So, and then also, I found a career playing piano for ballerinas. That's how I made my money all my life. I became a great ballet and contemporary dance accompanist. And I loved it. And also I got to see these gorgeous dancers every day dancing in front of me. But just that interaction of the music and the movement. I just want to shift gears here for a second. When I go out into nature and I quiet my mind, very often I begin to dance, and I don't give a shit what anyone may be thinking or saying that may be around me. I don't care. I just dance. And that's just something that happens. And I don't question it. I don't try to choreograph it or, something like that. It just, I am dancing to the cosmic music, the music of the spheres. So we have that music of the spheres, And I do believe music, like Pythagoras taught, that music does form these physical bodies that we're in. So it is a kind of musical process as the soul joins and becomes one with the physical body. But who would ever have expected that this musician and author would meet his biological parents and find out that one was a musician and the other an author? It's in our genes. And really, what are our genes? Who created them? We know that they have been altered. We know this for a scientific fact, that certain genetic sequences have been mixed and played with. Actually, I have what's called a Robertsonian translocation. Now, that's a problem with my genes. Two of my genes, instead of being parallel, are facing each other. And unfortunately, this means if I ever fathered a child, the child would have birth defects, or it would have a 1 in 5 chance of having a birth defect. And that's worse than Russian roulette. So, so far I have not fathered a child. I'd have to find the right woman who would be open to genetic counseling and so forth before we could do such a thing. But your question, in a very mysterious way, just touched on something so profound inside of me. Because, yes, I have a genetic defect called a Robertsonian translocation. And so if I fathered a child, it would have a 1 in 5 chance of having a birth defect. So it's very fascinating that of all the questions you could have asked me, you asked me that question.
Well, we know there are no coincidences.
Exactly.
And I mean, the beauty of your describing your experience with nature is something that I think people dismiss, and the deeper understanding of how the universe, God, Buddha, Tao, however you perceive it, is transmitting through you with a divine resonance that is coming out in your very expression, your very exploration of all the things that you are realizing is the journey of your life. And they can come at a low frequency or high frequency, how you're expressing it. I mean, an example of that would be the mere mortality of your dear friend who was lured and persuaded to to jeopardize and sacrifice that by
Yes.
listening to something that wasn't of the high resonance, that was creating this need to be distracted. And I think that
Well put.
it's really important that people understand that this messaging is happening all the time. And how clear are you at being able to recognize that? And you should always want to look for the true nature of all things from here. And so now it comes to the point where we start looking at how do we refine these skills. You have gone through an incredible life's journey of exploring so many different facets to be able to have a very clear path and what resonates with you. And then, of course, finding your home within the Wicca community and how powerful that is and what it means to you and how it resonates with you at beyond this, what we perceive as this reality, and how it will have rippling effects that will expand other people's consciousness through the very ritual, the very ancient practices that you have immersed into just an expression of who you are. And that love is second to none. It's visceral. We feel that. I feel that. I feel that building up within my heart center, how much you're attuned with that. So I would like you to sort of share with the audience a little bit about how you gathered certain parts of your journey and were very clear on these messages that are coming through, because it was very evident through some of your relationships and your friendships that it was clear that for whatever reason, however they came into this world within their reincarnation, their incarnation, how they perceive the reality, they were not listening and did not receive the same messaging that you have, and you're able to really define and discern and affirm what is true to you, what is the truth.
Well, I would say that you have to truly be willing to suffer. And I'm sure we just lost 30% of our audience with that statement. But no, it's the truth, because this stuff ain't easy. It also requires, and when I say suffer, I don't mean like, I don't know, getting the shit beaten out of you, but there is a certain suffering and courage too, because you have to take on your fears, and the courage to take on your fears does have a certain painfulness to it. I remember my introduction to Sufism. One night I just, I don't know, I was just hanging out in the evening and feeling kind of funky. And so I just pressed the button to my stereo, and it was tuned to a station, WBAI FM. It's a Pacifica radio station, listener sponsored. And yeah, I'd like to give them a plug. They're worth listening to. And the first, well, I could go back in the story, but the first words I heard coming out of my speakers were, "I'd like to introduce you to a Sufi master from Istanbul, Turkey." And I had just read a book about Sufism that I had just found by accident in a used bookstore. But I had thought, when am I going to have the money to go to the Middle East and ever meet Sufis? This is, it's a fascinating book, but, I don't have any, at that time, I didn't have a very good income. And so, but this guy's saying, "I'd like to introduce you to a Sufi master from Istanbul, Turkey." And onto the radio came this deep, booming voice, just inexpressibly profound. And he spoke for about an hour in Turkish with no translation. But I was just mesmerized by the sound of this guy's voice. And at the end of his talk, the host, a younger gentleman, came on and he said, "If you would like to meet Sheikh Muzaffar, he's going to be in New York for another couple of days. And tomorrow night, if you want to come down to 155 Mercer Street, you can meet Sheikh Muzaffar and actually witness a Sufi ceremony. He will perform with his dervishes a Sufi ceremony." Now, I was mentioning exotericism and esotericism. Well, Islam, which doesn't have such a great reputation right now, also has an esoteric side, and their esoteric side is Sufism. And so the next night I go take the train into Manhattan and go down to Mercer Street, and I ring the buzzer, and I just hear all this noise and everything like that, and I wait, and nobody opens up the door. And I think, oh shit, what am I getting myself into here? I don't know really who these people are and what they're into and what's inside this building. But I said to myself, and now here's the overcoming using the courage part, whatever, taking the risk. I said, let me walk around the block a few times and then try ring the bell again. So that's what I did. And I came back, rang the bell, and a guy said, yes. And I said, I'm here to see Sheikh Muzaffar. I was about 28 years old, and after a few minutes, very mysterious man, bald, with a scarf around his neck, kind of a French accent, said, welcome, come on in. And when the door opened, it opened upon this amazing space, a gigantic space with this huge Persian carpet, and I could see in the distance like another huge space with all these chairs. And he says, come in, have a seat. And that's all he said. And then he went back upstairs. So I walked in, and I noticed there wasn't another human being inside those two gigantic rooms. So again, this little voice inside me is saying, run for your life, because I didn't know what was going to happen. There were no other people there. It was this huge place. Well, bit by bit, people began to file in until the place was absolutely packed with people. And then this very tall man comes down. This brings tears to my eyes. Came down the stairs with a whole bunch of sheepskins. And he put them in a big circle. And then again, we waited. Nothing happened. And then a group of about 30 men descended the stairs. Now, I had been used to celibate Catholic priests, basically a bunch of castrated men, if you want to put it bluntly. But here were 30 masters, 30 wizards, if you will, 30 initiates. And they all sat down in a circle. And then the place became quiet. And down the stairs walked, in a very regal fashion, this man that sort of looked like a mixture between Santa Claus, your grandfather, I don't know, just a very, very, and also You might say the king. He had that aspect also to himself. And he sat down and he just began the most incredible ceremony I've ever seen in my life. And you can see it's like brought me to tears here, just talking about it. But I knew, like right then and there, I wanted to learn this. I wanted to be part of this. Whatever way I could, I wanted. I knew it was the real thing. And I think that's part of what we're talking about, is how to identify the real from the unreal. And I can tell your listeners a few easy and helpful ways to do this. One is to read a lot, and also to read the spiritual masters, read their books. So yeah, it's going to mean a lot of reading, but read what they've written. But don't just read. There are so many people with this internet generation. They'll read and read and read, and then they'll think they know. They think that now I know. You got to put into action what you've read. And so few. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Robert Anton Wilson, a very, very brilliant man, a writer of fiction and nonfiction. I love his books. And I took a course by him, and we found ourselves in the elevator alone together. And he said to me, you know what? He says, you know what I really hate? He says, like, everybody, like, like puts me on a pedestal and buys all my books. He says, but nobody does the exercises that I give at the end of every chapter. And later, when I became an author, I realized, yeah, he speaketh truth. Because, so yeah, what do? Well, you buy beautiful pictures. And if you can't afford to buy beautiful pictures, print out some beautiful pictures. There's a million of them. I have a bunch here in front of me, a bunch behind me, all throughout my house. They're just downloaded from the internet and put in a frame. But yes, surround yourself with the beautiful. You also need, also flowers. I recommend that you buy fresh flowers or plants with that flower and have them in your house along with the reading. And don't be afraid to read fiction, because often more knowledge and wisdom can be transmitted in a fictional novel, like maybe Dune, The Lord of the Rings, and so forth, Stranger in a Strange Land, than can be transmitted in a giant tome of nonfiction books. So yeah, don't be afraid to go read some fiction also. And but have no fear. And like I said before, that I never really worried about getting into trouble for exploring, like Wicca, when I was in the middle of exploring Sufism. I just thought, look, what it all comes down to is the truth is the truth. And like you were saying, it takes many forms. It could be Taoism, right? And Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever, and indigenous traditions. I live here in Mexico. I've explored some beautiful indigenous traditions here. Um, but what it comes down to is that there is the truth. And as that spiritual master, the Santa Claus grandfather king that came down those stairs once said to me, there are as many paths to the top of the mountain as there are human beings. And I know he was quoting someone else, but yes, we each, we each are a snowflake, like our thumbprint. They're no two alike. There's no two irises alike. And so we're so unique. And that is something, and there are no two snowflakes alike. That is something to really ponder, to really think about this. So I would say, begin by just surrounding your home with beautiful statues, even if you buy them in like the Salvation Army store, or some used store, pawn shop, whatever. Buy yourself a beautiful statue that reminds you of a goddess or a god, or just that uplifts you. Buy yourself. It doesn't matter how much it costs, even $2, but if it brings you some joy, bring these things into your home, into your life. Also think about the way you dress. Now, this is a big beef of mine. I mean, there are so many people that think they have to wear a uniform. I mean, like we were talking about the paranormal and the occult. And a lot of people who are into the occult think that they must walk around in black. And so they buy all this black clothing. Well, introduce me to an occultist who wears pastels, and then I'll sit down and listen to what he or she has to say. But if they're still into that uniform thing, that like a lot of Sufis, they'll be wearing these robes and these special hats and prayer beads and so on and so forth. And yeah, there's a purpose to prayer beads, and there is a purpose to wearing sacramental clothing, but at the right time. If you're having a special moment, a special conversation with someone, yes, that's a time to wear something that is special, that has meaning to you, maybe some special jewelry that has meaning to you. But yeah, I mean, these kids that walk around dressed all in black and with the inverted pentagrams around their shoulders or their necks, they don't even know what inverted pentagram means. They don't even know really what Satanism means, but they'll say they're Satanist. So uniforms, I'm just very wary when someone approaches me in a uniform. It's very interesting because if you happen to be an occultist and you love pastels, well, dress in pastels. I mean, that's the real you. Um, and this is the real you. You are showing me the honor and the respect of, of dressing in this fashion to appear in this podcast. I mean, this is an honor. You're not sitting there, with a T-shirt, saying "I love Hawaii" or something like that. I mean, you're dressed in such a respectful, sacred manner, and I truly appreciate that, son. I truly appreciate that and understand that. And but when people think they can just walk around all over the place anytime, it loses its meaning. It becomes a uniform.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up such an amazing point because, right back to creating the space, the sacred space that you speak of, whether it's acquiring a statue, or the reverence of an offering to the ancients, an offering to a spirit, the flowers, the candles, the ritual. It's so deep within the experience of whatever belief system that you are walking the path of and embodying. It comes with all these different things that are different facets of that experience. And you will find, as someone who's walking that path, when you pull out the candles, the incense, the flowers, there is a tangible, just like we're experiencing now, this tangible energy that's expansive, and it is second to none. And I believe that your love for the Wicca experience and the path that it walks and how you embody that is so powerful because you have to feel it. There is a visceral experience that takes place when you connect with what you know is the truth. That is second to none. You cannot qualify or quantify it by throwaway words, by the costume, as you referred to. It's like, people are creating a persona. We spoke on that briefly. You shared on that briefly at the beginning of this podcast, how people are presenting themselves to the world as something they're really not. They're far from the center of what we know as the truth to all things. And within the Taoist path, the Wu Ji, between the breath in and the breath out, the mother of all things, the Tao. And so, this is it's fundamental whenever you're walking that path and you truly are resonating. And we spoke on DNA. We spoke on how important that is. And I mean, the reference point of the scientific community, as that is a language that's sort of like, quite frankly, attempting to measure what we have known through the spiritual path of awakening ourselves to the true nature of all things. That does not come in a zero and ones. It's a language that I believe is necessary for many to get a grasp on what is taking place, but that doesn't even hold a candle to what indigenous ancient practices have been replicating and sharing with humanity for thousands of years. I mean, it's just, and I mean, for the audience that can experience this, anyone that's OG to the channel, students, anyone that knows of my material, there is this incredible, expansive sharing that Laurence and I are having right now that is second to none. And you can feel it. It's rippling through this digital offering into this space, and it will be forever imprinted in this experience. So when people see this, they're going to experiencing it And that would lean more to what you were speaking of. It's like just reading, just absorbing, which I feel is fundamentally the infrastructure of how New Age spiritual people perceive things. It's like acquire more information. I need more. I need more. I need more. I need everyone to understand within the audience, Laurence has walked a path of experiencing each of these incredible embodiments of God, Buddha, Tao, universe, with honor and reverence. It's happening as he walks that path and embodying it completely. And it's a visceral experiential moment that cannot be misplaced with words that are limited on a page. You must experience these things firsthand to be able to speak on them, to be able to share with others what it is that the message that comes through. And so, my goodness, my friend, the charge that we're experiencing right now is just profound, as it should be, because we're expanding with this knowing, and people need to get a better handle of their journey and not qualify it as the words. And I think I bring back the audience attention to that the words you spoke was basically understanding that, we could have a 1,000 lines of a version of a sacred text that means absolutely nothing if you're not being able to open yourself to embody that from every level. Now, within Taoism, it starts with the matter, the qi, the shen, the wuji, the mother, the Tao. And all these things ripple out in every aspect. And then that starts to transmute and be verified by you as a person that's walking that path through this visceral experience, through the divination of what it is that you're embodying, and it will be presented to you in all different ways, shapes, and forms. And it depends on whether you are allowing yourself to put your attention, intention to this messaging, to the clarity that comes with it. And I truly believe, and I agree with you, there's a lot of misdirection and a lack of experiencing and embodying and really mastering what it is that you're walking the path on. I read the book. I mean, most people tell me this. I read the Tao Te Ching. Yes, it was really good. It was a passing moment of a coffee table book that was really, that's cool. And quite frankly, when someone is really engaged with that scripture, it's a living scripture that is never ending and will always have a new meaning to you as the person embodying it and experiencing it through the very words that become visceral and in tune with your physicality that expresses a spiritual resonance that goes beyond this space and time.
Well, I believe that the Tao Te Ching is written on your face. And that sort of connects with what I was saying about you have to be 40 years old before you can study Kabbalah. This wisdom is not just written on our faces, but it, as you were saying about rippling out, it ripples out from our very bodies. And I remember studying with one Sufi teacher, and he said the first time I was going to meet with him, he said, "Come to my office at 9 a.m. on Monday morning." And so I was like, "Oh, well, now I'm going to hear some real secrets, and yeah, I'm going to hear what I've been wanting, waiting patiently for. So he was one of the first accountants to work with computers, and he had his computers and his accounting stuff and his desk there, and we both greeted each other, and he said, "Have a seat," next to him. And the only thing he asked me for in the next 3 hours was a pack of cigarettes and a vanilla egg cream. Not a word of wisdom, what you would expect from books or something like that. It was purely the transmission. The transmission happened, like you were saying, the emanation just from the teacher. You people, like you say, in the future will look at your face and they will receive the teachings about the Tao. And this will add to what they've read in the Tao-Te Ching. But just looking at your face, listening to your voice, this is the teaching. And so this has happened to me several times in my life. I had the pleasure in Turkey of meeting one of the greatest Sufi masters alive. And I had no idea what he was doing, but he asked me to sit next to him, and he just kept slapping me on the back. Not like, good old boy type slaps, but he was hitting me on the back. And he was an old man. So, yeah, these things go way, way beyond even anything that's put in any books. You're only going to realize them, know them, when you directly know them, the direct experience, the direct knowing, when you see the ceiling of your room open up and the heavens come into your sacred space, then you'll know. Then there's been so many mysterious experiences. Once during a Sufi ritual, we were going in a circle, just the men, women had their own circle. And we were moving so fast and so powerfully and chanting and singing. And there was one teacher, the big guy, he had to leave. He wasn't feeling so good. So he put his second in command in charge. And this guy just had these little symbols. They were no bigger than like maybe 6 inches in width, diameter. And he would go as each, the circle passed, as each person passed, he would smash together the symbol. So it came my turn. And so right in front of me, he smashed symbols together. And in that instant, I was on the roof of heaven. Okay, you might ask, what is the roof of heaven? And I have never heard of heaven having a roof. Well, I would agree with you. And my first thought was, I didn't know heaven had a roof. But there I was, on the roof of heaven. And just in ecstasy, I can't explain it any other way. And then just as quickly, bam, I'm back in my body. And the first thing I wanted to know was like, Like, did I do anything weird? Did I fall down or say something? Or I wanted to see if my feet were still, in the same pattern of the circle dance that we were doing. And yeah, nothing was different except that tears were pouring down my face. I was crying uncontrollably. So I don't know what happened, being on the roof of heaven. Heaven has a roof. Well, yeah, apparently it does. And why I was crying, I have no idea. But it was one of the most powerful spiritual experiences of my life. And these things will happen to you if you are sincere, if you do your homework, if you really create, you can call it the sacred space, your home. You can also say create your home like as a work of art. Make your home a work of art. I knew these two beautiful women artists, and they would cut out from National Geographic's different magazines, just all these different pictures, and they would just paste them on the wall. And every inch of every wall was filled with millions of pictures, and they had transformed their home into a work of art, a living work of art, a sacred space. And I mean, you might start thinking, well, maybe my wall needs a new coat of paint. What color do I really want to paint this wall or these walls? Things like that. Or maybe you're an artist, so you draw something on your wall. Paint your walls with all different images, whatever occurs to you. There are so many different ways that you can explore, and it's just wonderful because you do have so many spiritual paths that you can explore, and go to their meetings. Check them out. See how you feel, like San was saying. How does this make me feel? Am I feeling uplifted? Am I feeling different? And there's one word that is like coming back to me more and more lately, and it seems kind of almost silly in a way, because it's a word that I learned like when I was 3 years old. And that word is love. And yes, if you can learn to love a person that's hurting you, or a person that's hurt you, if you can just love the people that are walking next to you on the street, there's a million ways to show love. But I'm kind of amazed that at my age, and after learning all these paths and participating in all these paths, really what is coming to me so strongly is a simple word, love. And so, I'd like to just end with that this is, unless you have more questions for me, that I would say bottom line is to really learn to love, and to love yourself. Love yourself first, and more than anything else in the world, have the most supreme respect honor for yourself. I mean, you are the Tao. You were made by the mother of all things. So realize how special that makes you. You are the ground of reality. You are the one consciousness. So why shouldn't you honor, love, respect, adore yourself? It's okay. It is okay. It's not being selfish or anything like that. It's necessary. Love yourself first, and then you can learn to love others. And that's where sometimes a lot of pain will come in, but it's necessary. And yeah, and then the gifts start to pour in. But love, love, love. Um, when the very first Sufi meeting that I attended, when I was given membership into the group, the teacher, he had this big Turkish mustache. He said to me, my Sufi name at the time was Abdullah, and he said, which means slave or servant of Allah, servant of the ultimate reality, servant of the ultimate reality. So I was all ready to learn secrets, just like I was with my friend, the accountant. And I was like, okay, I'm going to learn the secrets. He said to me, I want you to go help the head of the guy who makes the tea and coffee. You're going to be his assistant. And so I had to get up and go into this little room where they made the tea and coffee. I couldn't hear anything that the teacher was teaching. And at first I was so angry. I was like, how dare he? Doesn't he realize all the spiritual work that I've done, the studying, the people that I've been with? And he's like shuffling me off to make tea and coffee, and then I have to serve it to everyone in the group. I have to actually have a tray where I serve the tea and the sugar cubes or whatever. And I thought this was one of the greatest dishonors and disrespectful things that he could have done. Only much later, maybe 20 years later, did I discover that one of the most honored positions in a Sufi group is the man who makes the tea and coffee. So here I was hating on this teacher, thinking like he was, really giving me the shaft and saying, I'm not going to teach you, you're gonna make coffee for all of us. And yet later I learned this is one of the most respected positions that a teacher could give to a student. So that's another form of love. It's tough love. Yes, you're going to have to learn tough love. It ain't easy, but love.
I mean, really, just the words that you've just spoken, and in using examples that are so relevant to the person who's viewing this podcast, relevant to their very journey as a human being, and understanding on such a deep level what that truly means. Because most people will come up with a version of love that is subject to their life experiences that will be very overshadowed by that and truly not resonate with what you and I are experiencing right now, which is this true return to all things. And that is love, but not the hallmark love, not the subjective version of love that the person watching this may be initially experiencing, and their understanding of that will come in the form of the absolute embodiment and the opening that you have just shared. The people must truly understand what Laurence has shared with the audience just in the last few moments of his revealing his true self. And we're not altering it with words. We're not altering it with ideas. We're not altering it with a persona. We're sharing this very moment, this present moment. And that is the experience that you're having that is oscillating your very being right now. And you cannot put this into words, but it is universal. And you through your own experience can resonate. And I feel that just being able to experience the conversation that we've had today will give someone an opportunity to realize, my goodness, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. And this is what is the true nature of all things. And even from the spoken words of someone so versed, so experienced, so mastered in so many facets of spiritual exploration and evolution, you, my friend, have really brought the most powerful example of what we speak of just through the conversation that we've had. But it hasn't been just a sharing of experiences. You're sharing an experience that is visceral, that is determined by not the words that you're hearing, not what you're looking at, but what you're feeling, to the true nature of everything, which is the return, as we call it, the great unity within Taoism, the mother. And my goodness, it does seem to be a consensus that I've experienced when speaking to incredible people like yourself, that through that mastery, through that journey, it always comes back to love. And the audience can only experience this from the feeling. The thoughts, the ideas, the words do not embody what we speak of. And everyone who's listening will feel it. They will not just hear it. They will not just see it. They will feel this and know that to be true. That is the truth. Nothing else matters. And I'm really lost for any other words that perhaps maybe you want to add to help the audience. But I don't think that comes in the form of words. It just is this present moment.
Well, I love how you speak about the mother, because in Wicca we adore the great mother, the mother goddess, and she comes in so many forms. But this has such profound meaning for us, and above all else is the mother goddess. And I feel so lucky to have a teacher right now, a high priestess. And she is the embodiment of love. And she is the embodiment of the Great Mother to me. She has not only shown me, with a side of her that's a great, great teacher, but she's shown me friendship. She's been a real good, wonderful friend to me. And I do want to express my gratitude to you, Kat. You're wonderful. And I think that if anyone does want to look for a path that honors the Great Mother, that witchcraft or Wicca is such a path. And I would invite anyone who would be interested to explore that path. And you're welcome to contact me, and I would be helpful I hope I would be helpful, but I'd be happy to put you into contact with any of the teachers that I mentioned or paths. But I certainly could put you into contact with very reliable teachers of witchcraft who come from authentic traditions and will teach you truly and not give you the hallmark version of Halloween or something like that.
This is a beautiful moment, my friend. I would suggest and recommend, and I really want the audience to go through all your offerings within this digital sphere. I'm going to direct them to all the necessary links to find Laurence and to go deeper on this profound offering. And I am so very grateful for you and the 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 friendship that we have just reunited in this lifetime. And it just seems like we never left each other. It's really, I'm just really grateful for you, brother.
It's a blessing. We've been blessed today. We've truly been blessed today.
And I do not want to muddy the frequency and resonance that we're experiencing right now. I would normally ask, what is your version of consciousness? But I don't need to. We're experiencing it right now.
Yes.
And I just want to thank you so very much for sharing your time with me. And
it's been an honor and a pleasure and a joy.
And I really look forward to further conversation in the future, because there is just so much to explore with your own experiences and journeys that it's really important for, in my opinion, the one thing that drives me is the collective consciousness, and conversations like the one we've had today is so important for people to find their way home, to reunite themselves with who they are. And people are just continually stepping into that space. And when you can experience it the way that we have today, it's nothing short of an epiphany for anybody to have that moment. So I want to thank you so very much for sharing your time with us today, brother.
Thank you, son. It's been an honor.
And I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us. And I am your humble servant, Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And I will see you soon, my friends.